Greetings, fellow real estate investors seeking the truth about different strategies and markets for investing. Erwin Cito here, host of The Truth About Real Estate Investing for Canadians since 2016. My businesses and I are committed to being a beacon of excellence in the real estate investment industry because it's dark out there. Thank you to everyone who's been sending me tips and articles on who owes who people money. Uh, it's uh, it's a bit of a mess out there. I actually had a friend message me saying that she's batting 1,000 investing in all the people she shouldn't have been investing with and has hopes of regaining some of that money. Anyways, uh, that's why this show exists, because we're here to deliver exceptional results and pioneering investment solutions that actually work to make money, to set standards, new standards for performance and client satisfaction. We're here to uncover the truth on how to actually invest and make money consistently over time. For anyone new here, my team and I have helped Canadian real estate investors complete close to $500 million worth of income property transactions since 2010. We've done next to no pre-construction condos. We actually focus mostly on small multifamily, and then we did a lot of student rentals, and then we did a lot of basement suite conversions, and then garden suite conversions. Basically, we've done always tried to implement the best practices in order to maximize ROI on properties. And this is why my clients have been overwhelmingly successful. Among them, 45 have made $1 million or more in their investment properties, and many others live off of the cash flow from their rentals. And that we were able to accomplish this in Ontario. It's obviously been a fantastic run, but what got us here won't work for investors today. Personally, I fear a prolonged trade war with the U.S. We don't have a proper prime minister who can lead this country. Which could hurt our economy, lead to further job losses, and complicate an already pro-tenant environment where evictions for non-payment of rent, for example, if our tenants lose their jobs and they can't afford rent, it could take a year or more to have them evicted. If you haven't reviewed your portfolio recently, now is more the time than ever. My wife and I, we've sold off almost half of our Canadian portfolio to improve our cash position and debt position. If you own properties with negative cash flow or you need to build up some buffer room, pay off some debts, I strongly recommend getting a professional portfolio review done. My clients and I are doing the same thing, and I'm reaching out to more of them and to offer them a second set of eyes. About 18 months ago, I partnered with Share as I was looking to diversify, an American company that makes it simple for Canadians to invest in U.S. real estate as 100% owners, direct owners of properties in top markets that all Canadians like, such as Florida, Texas, Arizona, Ohio, and more. Share is a full service asset manager, as in they handle everything. They source me deals. They showed me every deal that was actually off market. For my clients, about 75% of the deals are being done off market. They're providing all the underwriting from renovations to tenant placement to long-term management. That's all part of their service for fees. The focus from this company is on single-family homes and small multis, which has always been how we made our money here in Ontario. And unlike other investment companies, like a REIT, for example, Share only charges fees. There's no equity sharing. There's no profit splits. With Share, you get a perfect mix of what I consider a perfect mix of operationally passive investing, while the investor gets to own 100% of the property and have 100% control. It's your name on title or your company's name on title. That's it. And also the mortgage. So I, as the investor, get to keep all the upside. In my experience, this is the dream of every part-time investor. I don't want to be a full-time investor. There's a lot more things I enjoy in life. And for those who are looking to scale a portfolio to create a six-figure cash flow, doing this in Canada is nearly impossible without investing a lot of time and a lot more money. But in the US, the yields, the cash flow, the financing options, the mortgages, and property management are all superior to anything I've seen. And again, I've done over 300 interviews of this show every week since 2016. And so I've learned a lot. I've seen a lot of best practices in this country. And again, I can't say I've seen anything that competes with what I can do in the States. Now, speaking of scaling, shout out to Shane Grandison, past guest of this show. He's 33 years old, mechanic from Montreal. He already bought his second investment property, a renovated turnkey property. It's already tenanted. The tenant pays $1,395 per month plus utilities, just outside Kansas City, Missouri. A great place for investment for cash flow. For example, what car is manufactured there? The Ford F-150.
I think most Canadians are familiar with the Ford F-150, the number one best-selling truck in the United States for the last 46 years. Anyways, just the economy should likely be stable. That employer is likely stable. Anyways, so this property was bought just outside Kansas City, Missouri, for $175,000. So for anyone following, that's almost the 1% rule. So if you're interested in learning more about deals like this that Shane just did, you just simply go to iwin.sharesfr.com and you can scroll through past deals that we've done for clients, including all the projected financials, pictures, locations, economic stats based on the area, employment growth, price growth, job growth, population growth, all those sorts of wonderful things. Now, why in the US? For starters, you can just check out Apple's recent announcement. Apple announced that they'll be investing $500 billion in U.S. facilities over the next 4 years. That investment will create 20,000 new jobs. Apple's making this investment to expand the supply chain outside of China to avoid tariffs. The investment will include a new server production facility. They're gonna manufacture advanced servers for AI purposes in Houston, Texas. They're creating an academy in Detroit, Michigan, to train small and medium-sized businesses, and they're going to expand their data center capacity in places like North Carolina, Iowa, Oregon, Arizona, and Nevada. Now, I'm not a fan of anyone who promotes taxes or tariffs, or anyone who wants to cause damage to our Canadian economy, which includes my local friends with businesses and rental portfolios, and of course my tenants. But fear, if it was an acronym, has two meanings: forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. I personally choose the latter. Hence, we've rebalanced my portfolio and we're diversifying into a market and diversifying our income and portfolio and assets to be in a different market to honestly earn US dollars, where in the US is showing exceptional economic and high paying job growth, which leads to higher rents, which means stronger rent cash flow for the investor and long-term price appreciation. This is everything every real estate investor wants. I wish this was available in Canada, but it's not on this scale. And that's the truth about real estate investing. Now, as always, my team and I are here to support our clients and our investor community. If you're looking to network and connect with others who want to face everything and rise, I'm happy to announce that we'll be hosting an iWin real estate event on Saturday, April 26th in Oakville at our office. This will be a smaller in-person event. Past clients will get first access to register, and then we'll open it up to those on my weekly newsletter. If you're subscribed to my newsletter, keep an eye out. We'll be sending out a poll soon to ask you which topics you'd like to see covered. Here's some potential topics off the top of my mind: short-term Airbnb rentals, basement or garden suites, selling rental properties even if they're tenanted, property management, filling vacant properties, rent-to-own, student rentals, mortgage updates, U.S. real estate investing, my personal favorite topic, multifamily investing, infinite banking, whatever, private mortgages. We'll let you decide. We'll also be ordering lunch, so there will be a small registration fee to cover. Seats will be limited to 30. We're ordering lunch for that many people as well, because this will sell out. There will be no option to pay or register at the door. I have over 350 past clients and over 10,000 people subscribe to my email newsletter. And don't forget, you, my 17 listeners on this podcast, you 17 would take up half the room as yourselves. Now, this event will sell out. So I can't wait to see you all live and in person. As always, this will be a great event focused on making real estate profitable again. On to this week's show. This week, we have an amazing guest who's been on a bumpy path. A lot of success on both the front and the back end. Now, I've known Ryan Carr for quite some time, and but it was when I attended the Trust Your Talents Award Gala that a certain coach had the most award winners and thank yous, and they were for Ryan. Hence, I invited Ryan Carr onto the show, which he gracefully accepted. Now, what happens when a high-powered sales executive suffers a stress-induced heart attack at the age of 38? 38. For Ryan Carr, it was a wake-up call, like it would be for anyone, and that transformed his life. In this raw, inspiring conversation, Ryan opens up about how he and his wife, Shafali, went from making nearly $400,000 a year in their corporate jobs to building a 200-door real estate portfolio, all while prioritizing health, family, and helping others achieve financial independence.
Hear how Ryan overcame personal health challenges, navigated a massive investment setback, which included a $700,000 promissory note write-off. Some of that came back. A bunch of it was written off, and became a sought-after mentor who's helped 32 people break free from the 9-to-5 grind. This episode is a masterclass in resilience, strategic investing. For example, Ryan's from Ontario, but he invests also in New Brunswick, and more recently has been setting his sights and implementing investing in raising capital and building properties in Edmonton, Alberta. And he's creating a life by design. Please enjoy the show. Hi, Ryan. Carr, what's keeping you busy these days?
Well, a couple of young kids, son age 3, daughter year old, and obviously they're a huge part of the why. My wife and I consider ourselves fortunate that we started our business when we did. We had the vision of raising a family, but we were very much the stereotypical story. We strong income earners, both of us. She's an engineer by trade, way smarter than I am. I will always say that. She's the brains of the operation.
Mm-hmm. I
Myself,
know the feeling. Yeah.
came from a background in corporate sales, and from an outsider's perspective, everybody's like, yeah, Ryan and Shafali got made. But again, the very stereotypical story. We had sold our soul for the money, and we were miserable, we were stressed out, burnt out, and we wanted to find a different way because we knew we would have never been present for our kids, or we would have had a nanny raising them. And we had different aspirations, I suppose.
Amazing. Now, I didn't mention to you, I was actually texting with Tim Sai. The reason why I invited you on the show because Tim was so gracious to invite me to the Treasure Talent Awards show, and I personally judged some of the winners, and so I was thoroughly impressed. And then during award recipients, when they're giving their speeches, anecdotally, like your name probably came up the most in terms of the coach being thanked. So I thought I need to get Ryan on the show, find out what's going on and how he's able to produce so many happy and successful coaching clients. Man. And then just before we're recording, you told me you dropped some bombs on me too. So I'll let you start. Like tell the audience a bit about yourself.
Yeah. So as I kind of hinted at, I don't know, I had a strict upbringing, and I guess that's really what created the person I am. My father was a Mountie, RCMP, and although I hated it as a kid, I truly believe that it made me who I am today. I'm extra appreciative of it now, given my father's no longer here. I lost him 28 years ago to a stress-induced heart attack. And, so I quickly became the man of the house, had a sister, my mother, and a few things that, and then I watched money tear my parents apart. Literally, it was probably the biggest topic of their divorce. So I still feel I have a deeply ingrained unhealthy relationship with money.
Mm-hmm.
Wanted to do everything I could to work my tail off to ensure that money was never an issue. And so, got into the world of corporate sales after my business degree at Laurier, and, worked the way up the ladder, made my way into partnership at the agency I was at. Was making great money. However, again, the stereotypical story, you're in the corporate world, you sell your soul for a buck. And for a while, at least I was young enough, I was full of piss and vinegar, and was able to kind of endure. But it gets old quickly, when you're 80 to 100-hour work weeks and 65,000 kilometers a year of driving to see clients. So it was quite an existence. I definitely earned the money I was making. And, when Shafali and I met, we were both previously divorced. So we were a little bit later to the game. And obviously the biological clocks are ticking on both sides, but we knew we wanted a family. And, so we started into the real estate game. Actually, kind of an interesting start because we both had homes. And after we got married, Shafali moved in, and hers became a rental, and it was putting money in our pocket. We thought, oh, well, isn't this nice? And so we pursued that, or we explored that a little bit more, and we refinanced both places and started locally in our backyard in Kitchener-Waterloo doing duplex conversions. At the time, pre-pandemic, it was a pretty popular strategy. And I won't say we necessarily did anything particularly right. I like to say, and I think there's truth in it. Quite frankly, a monkey could have made money pre-pandemic with the market dynamics. So we got lucky. The market was going the right way, and we were able to execute a few perfect burrs. Then we leveled up a bit. The same realtor that we had used for those transactions, we got into a big value add triplex in Cambridge, like holistic, all the units, the exterior, facade, roof, windows, like big overhaul, but made out well there. And although we were both strong income earners, we quickly capped out in the residential space. And so we wanted to see how we could keep going. So at the time, we stumbled upon Legacy, one of the old real estate investor curriculums, which is now defunct in Canada. Shafali honestly thought we were going to meet Robert Kiyosaki at the one event. And I'm like, well, I'm not sure we will. And sure enough, we didn't. But anyway, I truly do. I'm thankful for the fact that we enrolled there. I think, the curriculum was great.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I guess a poorly managed business. So they're now defunct, but and that's where we met our mentor, Ray Salazar, which Tim's life partner, husband, and so he steered us into the commercial world, and he says, "Hey, take a look here. I think there's an opportunity for you to keep propelling because mortgageability is kind of removed from the equation." And so we jumped into the world of multifamily investing, and that's really
Mhm.
become our jam over the last 5 years. And now we have a portfolio well in excess of 200 doors, and have scaled out a business that's allowed us both to retire. So we replaced what was effectively almost a $400,000 household income through passive income in the business. And then when Legacy was kind of going the way it was going, Tim and Ray being a couple of the more prolific mentors there, and being owed a lot of money as independent contractors by Legacy, they quietly went about starting Trust Your Talent, which you kind of mentioned there in the intro. And as efficient and effective as they are, wanting to affect as many lives as they wanted to, they knew that they kind of needed a team,
Mhm.
and reached out to some of their former mentees, myself being one, and they said, "Hey, proof is in the pudding, Ryan. You've kind of made it happen, and this is what we're thinking about." And honestly, I did not even hesitate, Erwin. My exact answer, I remember the words. My answer to Ray was, "After what you and Tim have done for Shafali and I will follow you to the end of the earth and back. Let's go." And I think that the role that I came from prior, I was in B2B sales, so business to business, and it was very technical. We did a ton of training because we had products that were very progressive. We were in the high performance building world, so Energy Star, LEED, Net Zero. Still geek out about that stuff, and maybe there's a special topic there someday for people that like that stuff. Um, but I always had to nurture and educate people on proper application and things like that. And I think that that's really served me well in what has become my role as a coach and mentor at Trust Your Talent. And so my role there, I teach two courses for them actually. I do teach the multifamily income properties course. So how do you find them? What are they? Making offers with clauses and addendums to protect yourself, because we know that you need to do proper due diligence. Looking at the numbers and the KPIs, conservatively underwriting. I think that is crucially important. We can elaborate on that, conservatively underwriting, because all too often people will stretch the numbers to try to make it work, right? And I think that has
Oh, sellers don't help, but either sellers and agents don't help. But yeah.
yeah. Oh, wouldn't be the first time, right, that a realtor would paint a property through rose-colored glasses for sure. But I think that's also what has made Shafali and I successful is we are always ultra conservative in our underwriting. And when we make an ask from a prospective investor, not only are we including obviously down payment, closing costs, renovation costs, but we'll often already ask for a slight top up in our contingency fees, like in our slush fund. And then in our monthly budgets, before any cash flow distributions come out, vacancy and maintenance is stripped off the top and socked away into the account. And we never touch that. And so as some of these more difficult times that have come about that have unfortunately, sank some of the more amateur investors, we have been more than prepared to weather the storm, uh, and hang on to these properties and actually grow. I think it's been, for those that had the proper foresight, that operates effectively and efficiently, it's been a great time for growth. To go back, so yeah, I teach the core. I teach that course. I teach a business fundamentals course for them as well. Being a business grad from Laurier BBA, because like we wouldn't build a house without a proper foundation.
Hmm.
So too, should you probably not build a business without a proper foundation.
A business of a real estate portfolio. Is that what the
Yeah,
business
yeah.
course is
So
for? Yeah.
looking at corporate structure, looking
Okay.
at proper insurances to protect you, looking at building out your power team.
Yeah.
Because again, I mean, I don't want to do this alone. I'm not a realtor. I'm not an accountant. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a property manager. I don't
Mhm.
want to try to
You
be
can't
all
do
those
everything.
things. Yeah, you'd burn yourself out, right?
Hmm.
And so, putting all of that in place. And then, of course, my role as a mentor. And I mean, that has probably been the most fulfilling.
Hmm.
You reach a point where, frankly, I mean, you've got everything you need, and money is a tool. Money helps you buy back your time, helps you have experiences, and once you have enough, what do you do? Truly, what do you do, right? And so, I was excited to be given an opportunity to give back and pay it forward, like Ray did for us. And so I've been able to, and the goal with mentorship really is, we ask them, well, we mandate, we have sort of prerequisites, that they make their way through the curriculum, particularly the strategy that they want to execute on. And then we meet them in a market. Well, we help them prepare, we help them build out an agenda, we help them create their corporate structure, but we meet them anywhere in North America. Like, I mean, I've been into the US. I did one in Cleveland last year. Edmonton's a pretty viable market in Canada nowadays. Calgary, been out to St. John and Moncton, been to Saskatoon. Market's really irrelevant, right? I mean, what we're ultimately trying to teach them is, hey, with enough diligence, with enough preparation, realistically, in 48 to 72 hours, you can parachute anywhere and create a sustainable market, right? You can create a team, you can have meetings with people, you can turn over rocks, find opportunities, we can make offers, we can start doing due diligence.
Hmm.
And fortunately, I've had a chance to have some success. As I said prior to starting the show, to date, my tally is, I'm not saying it to beat my chest. I'm saying it because I'm proud of it. Quite frankly, I've helped 32 people reach financial independence.
Hmm.
And as you saw, I mean, as part of the review committee, which I think is part of what makes us different, right? Is we do have a third party, nonpartisan review committee for our awards, and it's very stringent, as you would know.
Okay.
Um,
And their documents have to be submitted for proof.
yeah, yeah,
It's
and
essentially an audit. It's not just like I make this much money.
yeah. And I think one thing that I really like to voice, because it was a huge part of our conversation as part of the founding team, and we see it with other coaching academies, and we won't name names, it's not productive, but we saw that, and we knew that, it at least myself, I went and audited another curriculum after I was done with legacy, just for interest.
Hmm.
And they don't go super deep on topics. They just kind of skim the surface. They get you salivating and excited, and then they're like, "Hey, Ryan, now that you know how to do this, here's a great deal to buy," and it's their deal. And I'm like, "Okay, so do you have my best interest in mind, or are you just trying to sell more of your stuff?"
Hmm.
How it came across to me.
Hmm.
And so as we were founding TUAT, there was one thing we said unequivocally, rule number one, we will not do work with students, period.
Hmm.
We will teach them to fish. We will teach them to create their own sustainable business. We will not hand them fish. Because frankly, we're in a position of power. And of course they're going to believe us, right? And I think that that's skewed. So, I we take a lot of pride in the success that we
Hmm.
create. And I think you saw that at the award ceremony. I mean, I don't take that role lightly. I mean, I was emotionally involved with a lot of my mentees, and I take a lot of um, pride, and I really build relationships with these people.
So for the listeners' benefit, I want to elaborate on the like the coaching student doing business with their coach. For those who don't know, the way the securities commissions work is you cannot just sell securitized investments to the general public. So often, what these companies do, individuals do, is they'll sell coaching. They'll bring you in, they'll teach you something, maybe teach you a lot, and then there's a good percentage of people who don't want to do the work. and so then the coach will pitch them their own investment. And so I understand why they do it, and it's a workaround for around securities laws, because now you're coaching client, you're educating them. Hopefully, it's good quality education, and that's all. And I've been saying this a lot more. It has to be quality. Don't just take a course. Take a quality course. If you're going to invest with someone, invest for someone who has track record and has quality, in a quality investment.
100%, right? And I think that's another thing that's foundational within our contract. And I've spoken to them; they're okay with me obviously divulging because it is something I think that makes us different. In our IC contract or independent contractor contracts, we are contractually obligated as coaches and mentors to continue to grow our portfolio, and they have the ability to spot check at any point. They'll come and, like we do for our students on awards night, submit your documents, submit your title documents, submit your joint venture agreements, show us that you've grown since the last spot check. There's danger of you being kicked off the team if you're not growing, because I think we've all seen that, right? Where I know I was involved in courses over the years. You mentioned quality education, and they're running through examples and numbers, and I'm like, these numbers seem like they were from 5 years ago. And sure enough, I mean, that was their last big deal. So if you're not out there as an active investor getting hit over the head and being affected by bylaw changes and Bank of Canada and CMHC policy changes and things like that, how effective are you realistically? In my view, anyway.
And it's a small community, so this is for listeners' benefit. It's a small community, so it's not hard to reference check if someone's active. Like, I literally know it's a small community. So I literally asked a friend of mine if they're seeing a coach who I know who says they are very active in that market. I asked a friend who I know is active in that market, do you ever see them at the table offering in the same buildings? His answer was no. I think he sells courses. He's not an investor. He's not a practicing investor, and he's not seeing him at the deal table. So then there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, and then I'll give another example. I saw another coach guru in his examples of deals. He was saying, we have this property tied up, which means you have it under contract, which means you don't own it. So why are you marketing this as an example property? Like, if you have it under contract, you don't even know the reality of the property.
True.
Right? Like, you haven't seen all the units. None of your team have seen all the units. None of you have seen 12 months of bankroll.
Should still be deep in due diligence at that point, yeah.
More my point is, if you're going to be teaching something on multifamily, for example, maybe use an example that you own.
Yeah. 100%.
Because that's a real investor. And preferably have examples from 10 years ago beyond, right? Not just I currently
to have things that are ongoing, right? Because to go back part of my course, I mean, we take it stem to stern, right? From the basic conversations that you start having to find opportunities and to build your team. Because I mean, you're not going to find everything on MLS or LoopNet, right? You want to try to find some off-market stuff. So how do you do that? Initial due diligence, making the offer, closing, stabilization, refi. So and yeah, I think you're right. I mean, that's where I like to think that the right people, like myself, not that I want to toot my own horn, but I mean, we can bring value because we made acquisitions last year. We're in the process of currently stabilizing, and then we have a large asset, a 60 unit complex, that the CMHC assumable debt that we took on it when we closed on it in March of 22 matures in May of this year. So we've started underwriting the file with our broker. We've done all the capex. We've stabilized the asset. We've raised the NOI by almost $23,000 a month, and we're seeing the effect of that, and we get to use that as a live example, to help.
Looks like the one you have tied up. Because you can't do anything to the NOI when you have the property tied up. Sorry, I'm using acronyms. You can't do anything. You can't improve the profitability of a property when you don't actually own it.
Yeah, 100%.
Now, I'll add this other thing. I've mentioned it many times on the show, probably not enough, is I don't judge coaches on their Instagrams or their social media or what they say about themselves. I judge them based on the results of their coaching students. And before we're recording, I know you don't like talking bad about people, but I've mentioned it before on this show. I know some coaches who have dozens and dozens of coaching clients who are bankrupt, right? So that's probably not someone you want to hire as a coach. Versus, again, I've seen the award-winning students and met them personally. I've reviewed their files from Trust Your Talent, so it's very different. And that's why I always told Tim as well. And Tim always thanks me for having him on the show. I say, thank you for being one of the bright lights in our industry. When there's, I'm always happy to shine a light on people that are going to help other people. I know it sounds like an endorsement, but I get nothing for this. But again, I just want to see people happy and successful.
And I think that's that, we found a bit of a tribe there, the team, we align on so many values. Um, and we have all reached that point, I think, right?
Hmm.
Where, we have more than enough.
Hmm.
So then, what do we do now? And
Hmm.
for me, I guess especially being a father now, that's my biggest goal is that, my kids love and respect me, and after I'm gone, hopefully they speak kindly of me. But maybe through these efforts, there'll be a few more people that, my legacy lives on through. They speak kindly of me after I'm gone. But I mean, it's, if anything, too, I have found it makes me an exponentially better investor because, yes, being out there, being active myself, yeah, I get hit over the face with issues, but I won't pretend to know I know everything, right? If I think the only benefit that I may have for mentees when they come to me with some issues, and there have been moments where I've almost been a deer in headlights because I'm like, hmm, I don't know if I have an answer for this right now, but let's work through it together. And the only advantage I may have, I always say, we're on the same path. I'm just maybe 2 dozen steps down the path further than you are. I've already tripped over that rock. I can tell you to look out for it.
Hmm.
And perhaps I have a bigger Rolodex, right?
Hmm.
Because that's that was literally my job for 17 years in corporate sales, right? Network like it's your job because it was. And so, I have the ability to build those relationships. And, my people are their people. I always tell them that. And it's interesting because I mean, in some instances, I also feel like I've bred some of my own competition. But it's I love that because, you know, myself, Tim, Ray, anybody on the team, I don't think any of us, yourself included, I mean, we certainly don't have a lack mentality. I'm not, hey, I'm gonna take Irwin's piece of the pie. I'm like, I know I like pie. I know you like pie. Let's work together and bake a
Hmm.
big.
Well, we're in completely different markets, so it doesn't matter. There's no competition between us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh, Now, you work with your wife in
Mhm.
your investment portfolio. Can you speak to the listener on how you divide duties? Because you come from different educational backgrounds and sounds like careers as well, and how you complement each other.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's always an interesting dynamic. I like to say when you're bedroom and business partners, and sometimes there's things that
It's
you
tricky.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You don't want to bleed over into the other areas, right? But it's inevitable. And it'll be a cool anecdote for you because we were actually seeing Cherry on our mentorship with Ray when we got our first big lesson in realization. So we were in there. Shivali and I are both strong personalities. She's a very strong woman. And we were still newer in our relationship too. Like we were only together for about a year and a bit at that point, and we just decided to start growing the business. And we were talking over each other. We were basically passively fighting with each other in the meeting. And so we get back to the car, and I'm driving. Shivali's in the front passenger seat. Ray sits down behind me, and he literally cuffs me in the back of the head, gently. But he says, "You guys look like fools in there." He says, I'm not a marriage counselor. I'm not going to comment on how that can affect your relationship. However, from a professional perspective, you guys look like fools. You guys need to get your poop in a group, basically. And what he encouraged us to do was, have a candid conversation. And that's carried over, with me for a lot. I love that term and I use that a lot with my mentees now. Have a very candid conversation, whether it's with your spouse who's involved in the business with you, whether it's with your property manager, etc. And we sat down and we looked at each other's personality types, we looked at each other's strengths and weaknesses, and we determined, okay, how will you best serve the business? And where does the other person need to pick up the slack? Right. So myself, coming from, the world of business studies and being in corporate sales for 17 years, I am naturally good at building relationships. So I find the deals, I find the money. I try to grow the business, right? And I create the relationships initially to build the team. Shafali, being a textile engineer by trade with a lot of process refinement skills, she's got her Lean Six Sigma black belt, Kaizen, ISO, you know, all about really looking at that process and how can we break it down into bite-sized chunks and refine every last piece of it. She how she manages to find money in some of our owner statements, or things that had seemingly been done very recently, and then she seems to track all of this, and she'll ask the questions. Hey, was that toilet not replaced 2 months ago in this unit? You sure that's right? Or maybe that's charged another unit, or maybe that's a duplicate charge.
Mhm.
And whether it's intentional or not, and you,
Mhm.
you never know, and you never want to point fingers, but who
Yeah.
knows, right? I mean, it's not something that's unknown, that's sometimes how some PMs try to make money, right? Is by nickel and diamond with maintenance costs.
Or they screw up. Or even one of their, maybe even their subs screwed them over.
So
You
to
can't keep
have,
using the error.
someone like that, balancing you is great. Another anecdote or a great story. We did one of our earlier duplex conversions in Kitchener. If it weren't for Shafali, honestly, I'd probably spend like crazy often. Like I just say, hey. So she keeps me in check. And so this duplex conversion, we went to Best Buy for our basement suite, and I bought this beautiful stainless steel appliance package. Frankly, overspent. Now we go to scratch and dent outlets because who cares? Especially if it's on the side, you'll never see it once it's in
Yeah. Love
place.
those. Demo
And
models, floor models. Yeah, I'll take it.
and,
Like used
and
car versus new car. No one knows the difference. Especially my rental. I don't care that much.
somehow she tracked. So she must have the receipt. I knew she had the receipt, and she tracked all the model numbers. And Best Buy had a 90-day price match guarantee at the time. And literally, we were both on our day jobs at the time, but day 89 and a half, kid you not, on her lunch, she calls me, we got to go back to Best Buy tonight. Like, why? Those appliances are on sale at another store, plus they have free delivery. And me being a sales guy, like if I perceive value in a product or a service, I don't heckle. I just pay. And
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah, for the relationship. Yeah.
salespeople make horrible customers because well, good for the person selling,
Yeah.
but bad for trying to save ourselves money. And so we go back to Best Buy, and I'm mortified. There's no way I'm going up to the customer service desk. So I go and walk off and look at some electronics while she goes, and she saved us $438. And I'll remember that story forever, right? Because you need those types of people on your team. And so anyway, to go back, it's really about candidly having a conversation with your partner and determining, hey, knowing what we know about each other, where do we think each other is going to best serve the business, and where do we think each other falls short? And
Mhm.
and opening up that space though, right? Because sometimes depending on your dynamics in the relationship, I mean,
Mhm.
having some of those difficult conversations and maybe pointing some fingers at each other can be hard. But
Mhm.
saying, hey, we're doing this candidly. We
Mhm.
want to be really honest here. There's no offense meant. Let's just figure out how we can best propel this business forward.
Mhm.
um, and then, of course, creating. Some people always ask, how do you get all these things done? Right? You're a coach and mentor. You have a thriving business. You have two young kids. You still manage to take care of your health. How? What we block everything out. Everything. Everything goes in the calendar. Right? I drop my son off to Montessori school in the morning. I get back. I got my first work block. Right? 9 a.m. to noon, my first work block. Noon to 2, that's Shafali's personal care time. She's off to the gym, the sauna, whatever. So it's daddy daughter time for me because my daughter's not in school yet. But I love that. We have some quality time together. 2 to basically 6 is my next block. So I'll go to train in that block as well. I train with my trainer 3 times a week, and then the other 3 days I train on my own. So we both have time for our health. And then in the evening, it's non-negotiable. It's in my calendar. So even mentees, when they're trying to book calls, 5:30 to 8:30, family time. dinner together, some sort of fun activity before they go to bed, it's non-negotiable. It's in there. And depending on things that are going on, if we have an opportunity we're looking at, or something we're trying to do due diligence on before we close, there might be a bit of an evening work block, but I try my best to be in bed by 11. But it's, again, it's everything is blocked out.
Hmm.
I think that's the best way to be efficient and to kind of help support each other, right?
Hmm.
Because I mean, yes, you want to have time together as a family unit, as husband and wife, but everybody needs a little bit of their own time too. I like to think, right?
Hmm.
And we managed to accomplish that.
Now, Ryan, I noticed. So I study both successful people and admittedly I study business failures as well. And one thing I noticed was if you take, for example, the folks who are in the news for going bankrupt or disappearing or whatnot, uh, a lot of the time they were very good at raising money. They weren't so great at executing the actual investment. And sometimes they were just outright lying about the investment. So what I noticed with yourself and Shafali is that, like you have the sales and relationship skills, and Shafali being a black belt, which is, for the listeners' benefit, this is a very high certification for process and um, quality of process. GE made this thing famous, made that whole concept famous. Kaizen made famous by like Honda and Toyota, whatnot. Anyways, uh, but yeah, you guys complement each other well to properly execute. And this is what I always preach to folks in general, is also as well, like, understand who you are, what you're capable of. Anything you can't do, you need to find it.
100%.
Right? Like the concept of who, not how. Right? It's great to know how to do it. Maybe you do it yourself for a little bit, but if you get to a certain scale, then you probably need to find someone else to do it. And this was the miss for a lot of these companies that went under, or like the gentleman out in Vancouver who owes like 113 million of private lending. Again, could not execute. Great salesperson. Could raise money like nobody else. No one's business. But again, could not execute the actual investment because um, who knows what reasons why. Now, I also want to bring up, like, you dropped the bomb on me I didn't know about. I don't know if you're public about it, but your heart attack.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it plays into that, a bit of my intro, right? I
Are you
was,
public about that? Do people?
um,
It's not
I mean,
blared
I
all over
guess,
your Instagram.
yeah, not splattered all over my social media. No, but I mean, those in my circle definitely know. And yeah, I mean, it was interesting because I always try to look at the silver lining. I mean, yeah, obviously scared the bejesus out of me.
Wouldn't have.
That's induced. It was October of 2022. About 20 after 6 in the morning, I got jolted out of bed. The sweaty palms, the pain in the chest, the heavy breathing.
Shit.
Um, and so ultimately went to the hospital, went through the full EKG or ECG, went through, afterwards a stress test, a Holter monitor. And yeah, they found, I forget the name of the protein that's secreted right during a heart attack, but they found
Okay.
trace amounts of that protein, which confirmed basically that something had happened. And then having lost my dad at 52 to a stress-induced heart attack, I mean, it really hit home. And Shafali was out of the business at that point. So we started our journey in March of 2018. September of 2020, she retired from her job. So we did that pretty quickly. And then we had set goals out in place right away. We said, okay, 10K a month, she leaves, 20K a month, I leave. And we were getting towards the 20K, and I arbitrarily moved the goalpost because, as I talked about before we started, I guess frankly, it was a heavy set of golden handcuffs to let go of. I mean, I was making great money. I was making 300K plus a year. And, with what was now a young family at that point, I mean, that security coming in, that's hard to let go of.
Hmm.
So I arbitrarily doubled the goal and to 40K a month. And I think that it kept me in it clearly far too long. And, as we grew, I mean, when I joined the organization that I was with, our annual sales were shy of 5 million a year. When I left, it was over 86. So we grew significantly over, what was that, 17 years. In doing that, though, you need to become an entirely different organization.
Hmm.
And with that, came, unfortunately, a lot more micromanagement from the managing partners. And of course, we attracted manufacturers that drove us harder, that wanted more reporting and other metrics. And so the heart attack happened. And there were many things at play there. I mean, the hours that I had to put in, the number of calls I had to make a day. I mean, most days I was lucky if I had time to quick slide through a Tim Hortons drive-through to grab a coffee and a wrap between appointments. So, I probably paid for a couple of employees' annual salaries at Tim Hortons every year easily, but not a healthy lifestyle whatsoever,
Mm-hmm.
right? And very sedentary because I was either behind the wheel or sitting at a desk for a business meeting. And when it happened, yeah, I was 237 pounds. Nowadays I'm 100 between 185, 190 and 12 to 14% body fat. I've really committed to the fitness because I remember, and that comes back to kind of some of my reflections as a child. My dad was very successful as well, but I looked at him, and I mean, he wasn't always the picture of health, realistically, and I noticed that, and I said, okay, what has he sacrificed? And kids are a lot smarter than we give them credit for, and I'm
Oh, they're
I'm
always watching.
I'm starting to see that, and as financially successful as Shefali and I've been fortunate enough to become and create. I didn't want those questions coming up with our kids. What did mommy and daddy have to sacrifice? I want to show them. And she was another one actually that was at the annual conference. If you remember, Eva Medilek. She's one of Brendan Burchard's high performance coaches. I've been working with her for a few years, and one of the biggest things that she says that's really hit me is it can be a both end. It doesn't need to be an either or. You just need to figure out how to make it happen, right? So like time blocking, for example. And so committing to my health, I want to be an example to them on all fronts, right? Financially, physically, spiritually, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's also paid dividends on the other front. I mean, yes, obviously, hopefully no more future heart attacks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 53 pounds lighter than I was when I had the heart attack,
It's a lot.
and stronger than ever and confident and comfortable in my own skin. Um, but I find it's given me other benefits, like with my teaching and mentoring. I command a little bit more attention when I'm at the front of the room because of the physical stature, my energy levels, my mental clarity, my ability to cope with stress. It's all through the roof. And the interesting thing I find in our business, because I try to drive the growth, finding opportunities, finding money in the fundraising conversations in particular. There we go. There we go. Yeah, it was actually that was literally what was that? The night before my birthday. So
That was a day ago.
yeah, yeah.
Well, for those who are watching the YouTube, for those who aren't watching the video version, I'm on Ryan's Instagram, and again, he's quite fit, as proven by the picture. After moving close to 60,000 pounds over how long?
That was about an hour and a half workout. That was 10 by 10. So 10 sets of 10 squats, 10 sets of 10 bench, 10 sets of 10 deadlifts.
Is this daily thing? That's a lot of
No,
reps.
no, 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 no. That's actually that workout now on my new program because I'm in a bit of a shred phase.
Yeah.
That's actually weekly. That's every Sunday.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I won't be able to move till next Sunday.
I'm feeling it today. I typically have sort of that delayed hit. It's about 2 days, and I'm
Yeah, yeah. Welcome to your 40s.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, some of the gym bros there, and obviously the family features quite prominently in the social media there. That's a big part of why we're doing what we're doing too. Is we want them to be students of the world, right? As much as formal education
Mhm.
plays a role in growth. I truly think that there's so much that can be learned from culture and history, and so exposing them to different parts of the world. We were reflecting. I mean, every New Year's Day we do this exercise as a family where we reflect on what our goals were for the previous year, and we really dive deep and say, okay, and some many we hit, some we missed. Realistically, some we missed, and we need to kind of understand why. And then we create new goals. And in reflecting on last year, I realized it would have never happened when I was in the corporate world. Like we were fortunate enough to travel for 14 weeks last year, but we created that, right? So, we were in India for a month, and we were in Taiwan, and we were in Bali, and we were in Mexico on a cruise for my son's first birthday, or sorry, third birthday, I should say, and we yeah, we love that. We love creating the memories because, hopefully, when they get older and they have the ability to make their own decisions, they want to come back and see mom and dad, because they're cool.
Mhm.
We'll see. I mean, time will tell on that front, but it all comes together, right? And I mean, it's such a big part of our why, for sure, and why we do what we do. And I think that, if I have to say, between, like you said, us being complementary of each other with our skill sets, but being family people, when we try to search for and align with partners on an investment front, you know, we always do kind of look for those values and for that ability. I mean, one of our more proud partnerships is a young couple that I met years ago, and revealing a bit of inner geek, but I'm a competitive. Well, I was a semi-competitive bowler, a 10 pin, and so I met some people. Actually, I've met a few partners there over the years, and but these
Sorry, investment partners. You met investment
yeah,
partners while bowling?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
okay.
and always, I find one thing I like to say is a quiet investor is a broke investor, right? Talk to the world about what you're doing. Just put it out there.
Hmm.
And this couple, I mean, they have a young daughter. She's wonderful, and she really is growing and excelling now, but has a bit of a disability, and as such, needs a support worker, and needs some medications, and that can be pretty crippling on a young family, right? That gets expensive. And so, the passive income we've been able to help them create, to help support those endeavors. And, now with some of our partners, them included, we're on round two, three, some four of acquisitions, with the same money, because we've been able to properly execute on stabilization and refinance, I guess, the popularized Burr term, if you will. And we take a lot of pride in that, because I mean, it's, yeah, not numbers and money are one thing, but being able to help be a part in creating those stories, whether it's through actively investing with them, or whether it's being their coach or mentor to help them scale their own business out. It's so rewarding, so rewarding.
Now, right now, as we record, this is January 7th, so 2024 just ended. And what I think is the bottom, the rough cycle of the real estate cycle is probably past us. What have been the last lessons from like the last 2 years or so? It's been about roughly about the last 2 years have been a rough spot for real estate investors across Canada.
Yeah.
What have been your observations and lessons? And then
uh,
after that, I'll ask you about where you see things going forward.
sure. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think in the last couple of years, and we've seen a number of gurus or investors, fade away
Hmm.
into nothing.
Oh no, they're still around. They just blocked me, but yeah, because they know I know. Sorry, go ahead.
It's been ensuring you're always conservative. Like, honestly, real estate is not a get rich quick scheme. We both know this, but when you do it properly with time, it is a I say get wealthy, for sure. Right. I truly think that real estate is what helps to create long-term wealth. To rely upon passive cash flow from properties to potentially live your life, especially in your early stages as
Mhm.
an investor, I think that's a critical mistake, because there's always going to be things that come up. And I think that that's where conservative underwriting needs to take place from day one. You know, One thing we've always done, over ask on the entry, but spell it out. Hey, Mr. Mrs. Investor, this is why we're asking for what we're asking for, the breakdown,
Right.
right?
You're talking about a seller, right?
No, when we're trying to acquire a property and enroll investors, right? So we say, okay, we need X for closing,
Got it. Yeah,
down
yeah,
payment. We need this for legal and all of that. We need this to kickstart some anticipated repairs, and we also want to actually bring in a little bit to top up our slush fund to have money there. And then in our monthly budget, before any cash flow distributions are ever made, we're always pulling out funds for vacancy and maintenance and placing them in a joint, like a corporate account that everyone has visibility on, right? Including our partners. They can see at any time where the balance is and where it's growing. We run a full income and expense statement for them every month and provide that to them. So conservative underwriting, conservative operation, but also not being a one-trick pony. And I think that's where a lot of people failed in the last couple of years, right? We had a lot of people that were known to be flippers, for example. And when the market shifted and values adjusted down in a lot of markets, they were probably overpaying on the entry. They weren't making a lot of money on the buy. They were overpaying and they got caught with their pants down, right? So when what may be your core strategy right now is no longer viable, okay, where do you go? How do you pivot? Right? You need to be prepared to pivot. And for us, for so long, value add multifamily was our thing. And we still have that radar on, and we're still actively evaluating a couple opportunities right now, for example. But we pivoted because in the last couple of years, in real estate in general, I would say money is made when you add value. I think that's fair to say, right? And the more value you add, the more opportunity there is to make money. So as the market became more difficult or tighter, we had to search on, okay, how do we create more value? So we pivoted to purpose built, to infills, right? Because at that point, it's no longer an existing asset that you're trying to stabilize. You're now creating more density, which, let's be honest, so many cities across the country need. So we pivoted into Edmonton versus, we were very active in New Brunswick for quite a while. So we pivoted into Edmonton. They have basically rolled out the red carpet for small and medium sized investors with some of the rezoning standards that were created, and we started doing some infills. So we acquire those old, well, the one instance, Granny's old bungalow, 1,000 square foot bungalow on a massive lot, a 50 by 150 lot, and the city's allowing us to put up an eightplex there. Right. And so, but again, as we approached that, we were ultra conservative. So we knew going in that on the exit with MLI at a 2.4 million as built value and 90% loan to value, we'd be able to get our money out. And then our appraisal came in at 273. Right. So now, we only need about 79.3% loan to value. So we're not going to over leverage the property, which is great. So we get to retain some cash flow. But of course, we're going to take the 50-year AM. Why not? Right. For us, I think it's a mindset shift, right? I mean, there's that old dialogue a lot of people get. Work hard, pay off your mortgage, don't get into debt. Yeah, don't get into consumer debt. You don't necessarily need to pay off a mortgage depending on what your goals are, right? I mean, we have very little interest in paying off the asset. We just need to re-leverage it so that we can get more, but not to the extreme. Yeah, okay, you can get 95% with MLI, but do you want to take it? Because then you're leaving yourself in a very dangerous position, in my opinion, which
Which many people had.
yeah. Yeah. So I mean, we know, okay, we only need 79.3%. That's all we're going to take. No more. Right. We'd like to get our money out, and our investors already speaking the right language. They said, hey, if we get it all out, let's just parlay it into another one. Wonderful. That's the ultimate compliment I feel as an investor when your partners say, yeah, you've done well by us. Let's let it ride. And so, again, so conservative in your underwriting, not counting on your passive cash flow distributions to live your life, not being afraid to pivot, you know, uh, so whether that's constantly being, educating yourself and being, going in search of new skill sets, I think that's crucial because if you're not growing, you're dying, quite frankly, in my opinion. Those would probably be the three biggest things that have helped us to bridge through the most recent years.
Yeah, and also like you chose a market that is expected to lead the country in population growth as well. So it's
Yeah,
not you're not one of my criticisms of some of these failed investment strategies was, for example, one of them was like Timmins, Ontario, for example. It has a shrinking population and a very small one, in fact, like
to
sub
begin with.
50,000
Yeah,
population with like no neighbor anywhere close to a decent sized population. So so for me, right off the hop, like this strategy doesn't make any sense. Versus again, I've had quite a few guests on this show who are investing in Edmonton. People I consider smart.
Well, I think there's some nice dynamics going on there, right? I mean, you have economic diversity. I mean, yes, there's still some natural resource ties, not as heavily biased, I would say, as Calgary. But it's the capital, so you've got government. There's a number of wonderful education institutions there. You've got a budding tech sector. You've got a ton of logistics in Leduc, right? So I think there's a lot of diversity there. The better balance between landlord and tenants is welcome as someone that lives in
I would say balance. I think it seems pretty landlord friendly.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I mean, yeah, and the fact obviously that there's
But that's relative to like the rest of Canada. Like, and
yeah.
where else do you not pay your bills and expect service? Only in Ontario, Quebec, BC.
I think the worst we've ever had out there, and then mind you, we got a great PM out there. We had some non-payment 42 days gone. Think about
That's a
Ontario.
pretty good worst case scenario compared to what you see in Quebec,
Oh,
BC, Ontario.
yeah, absolutely. And the fact that, we have no interest in being slum landlords in the least.
Mhm.
I owe you a couple of pictures as follow-up for promotion in the end, and I'll get them to you. But, I'll send you some of our units. Like we like to operate nice units. We're proud of our product. And, at least out there, you can kind of get what's due to you. You can't be an absolute cowboy and charge whatever you want, because then of
Mhm.
course the market
It's market, yeah.
will stay vacant.
Yeah.
But at least it can be fair, and we enjoy that about that market, and for sure.
Yeah, hopefully, I don't know. I should stop using the word hope and government in the same sentence. But for those who don't know, like Edmonton's a wonderful case study for no rent control and having limited red tape for developers. Because for like the longest period, like rents were very inexpensive in Edmonton
Yeah.
because builders were allowed to build with density without red tape and excessive charges. And that was for the win of the tenants.
Oh, I couldn't believe that. I mean, we haven't ourselves, we haven't done any development in Ontario, and I don't know if we ever will, quite frankly,
Well,
seeing
we do.
how much further our money can go other places.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know developers here, whether it was from my previous life, because we played in that world. We dealt with some of the biggest builders in the country,
Mhm.
to like Tridel, Delterra, Mattamy, guys like
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
But I mean, in Edmonton for our infills, so the one that we just got all our permits on, 6 months from closure on the property to all of our permits in hand, 6 months and 26 grand. No way that would ever happen,
Whoa!
right? Think about
Only 26,000 in soft costs?
it. Yeah. Well, I guess sorry. If we add our asbestos inspection and mitigation in there, we're in and around 34. About it.
You need that much for a house you're going to tear down?
So yeah, that's they need you to be clear, even though you're tearing it down. I guess they don't want it aspirated into the air. Didn't make a lot of sense to me, but whatever. So we had to make sure that we had the inspection, and
Yeah.
that anything that was found we had to
Yeah.
mitigate. Well, yeah, we were about 8 grand in for that. So I guess consider it 34 or 35K for our soft costs.
Because in like Kitchener, like the development charge for a garden suite is over 40,000
Yeah.
compared to you got it done for less than 40,000 for an eightplex
And
in
it's 6 months.
Edmonton. And
And I
6
guess,
months.
we're working with a great builder who currently has about 50. They build about a handful, 8 to 10 custom homes a year, but
Yeah.
their bread and butter is actually infill. So they have about 50 of these on the go. So they have a number of plans that the city has seen umpteen number of times,
Yeah.
and already basically kind of gotten the stamp a number of times over. So that may help to fast track things. But
I still think it's the culture of Edmonton.
yeah, shocker at the efficiency.
Yeah, and then again, like end of the day, it's a win for the tenants because the rents, like I know they're kind of creeping up, but like the last like over 10, 12 years, rents were very flat thanks to builders building, right? and that's flat. Like gross numbers. Real numbers are actually going down based on if you're inflation adjusted,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And again, that's a win for the tenant. Where else do you find wins for the tenants in Canada?
Well, the fact, I mean, when you look at, and don't get me wrong, like MLI, when used properly, MLI Select, it's a great program. Just
Mhm.
again, be careful not to over leverage
Yeah, it
yourself.
goes back to my point about quality investments.
It it
Quality
it
also means not over leveraging.
it makes you can actually make the affordability index there work because it's $1,663. So our basement suites, even at top of market, they're below the affordability index. Makes so we're not sacrificing anything.
Mhm.
It you know
So I think you already answered my next question. And what is the plans for 2025 for investing? What do you see going forward? So Edmonton
Yeah,
developments.
I mean, we definitely want to continue to grow there. We like the dynamics of those quick, small little infills because I mean, you're 18 to 24 months from acquisition to finished product, realistically. We do want to explore a larger purpose built because the equity release we're anticipating on that 60 unit that we spent the
Hmm.
last well, almost 3 years stabilizing is going to be significant. And so we're actually looking at potentially going either west or into the US.
No, we can share notes.
Yeah, yeah, well, so we're looking at maybe a land assembly in Edmonton and
Mhm.
doing like a 40 to 60 unit purpose built.
Mhm.
We have actively always made the business decision. We don't particularly like anything high rise. We don't like elevators, big capital cost.
Very expensive. The
Um,
ongoing maintenance.
so we've always liked sort of your walk up model, your 3-story walk up. So we'd probably focus on something more like that.
There's
Um,
so few contractors who do elevators, so you're really at their
yeah,
mercy.
yeah. So continuing to grow in Edmonton for sure. We have the radar on in New Brunswick, which was another one of our large markets, but we're not as active there, but we are very much. We have yet to really invest in the U.S., but that's a big part of the goals that we've set forth for this year. We knew we have a number of mid to long term projects that are finally coming back to fruition. So we'll be pretty flush with some capital, which will be nice. And we knew that when we wanted to make that jump, as you know, I mean, obviously the U.S. is very litigious; they like to sue. So we want to make sure, like we've always done here in Canada, I've always said lawyers and accountants get great ones. Don't ever gripe about paying them because they're going to
Hmm.
make you money in the long run.
Hmm. Yeah, not
And
cheap on
so,
insurance either.
oh yeah. And so we wanted to make the proper investment to have not only our corporate structure set up in the US properly, but also all that cross-border money movement to avoid double taxation and things like that.
Mhm.
So maybe somewhere we can compare notes. I'd appreciate that because
Yeah. Well,
that's the
Terry's going to sit for a US CPA in a few weeks, so
okay.
her firm is already taking it already has US clients. The clients investing in the US for doing their and she's doing their tax returns.
Okay. Okay.
Now we're running out of time, and I asked you before we recording if I could ask you your experience with Claire Drage, so I can mention the name because it's quite public. It's all in the news.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then the show has always been like this isn't all sunshine and rainbows. You had a heart attack at 38. I didn't know how this didn't give you a heart attack as well.
Oh, it was interesting. So, I mean, for those listening, we've managed to recuperate some of it because there were some people that did the right thing. And when we started conversing with them directly, they ultimately did pay us back. But we stand at this point. I mean, I think it's ultimately safe to say we're going to write it off because there's nothing left in the CCAA proceedings, and we were all promissory notes. So we weren't in second position, we weren't in first position. And we knew going in, I guess, at the time that that was a perceived risk. However, based on what we thought of Claire, I mean, she was an instructor at Legacy, right? That gave her clout in our mind. And so part of why we invested with her, we knew that that was ultimately worst case, but we stand to probably write off and lose $790,000 in that fiasco, which hurts. However, trying to always be the optimist, I look at it, and actually a conversation with Ray occurred, and it was a quite a perspective shift because he says, Ryan, think about 2018 you, right? As we were just starting the business. If something like this had happened then, I may very well have gone into the brokerage with a baseball bat or worse. And now Yeah, it hurts. It'll sting, but it won't sink us, right? Because we've managed to diversify, we've managed to create other wins. Um, but I guess that's another lesson learned is, as attractive as those high returns can be, at this point, we were 17% because all of our notes were direct to lender. There's always that risk versus reward. And we probably could have done a little more due diligence, a little more digging, um, and probably could have attempted to make demands for repayment much earlier on. Like, I mean, we let it go on for months and months and months of non-payment, and then things ultimately went into CCAA proceedings. Um, and yeah, I mean, there was a time early on when we first got news, I legitimately started thinking about interviewing. I went back to some headhunters in my old industry, and I had some great offers come up. Don't get me wrong, I had $250,000 offers to go back into the workforce. However, knowing what my previous life was like, again, I would be earning that. I'd be 70, 80 hour work weeks. I'd be low guy on the totem pole again. Um, and I looked at what we had so fiercely clawed and fought to create through our business to be present for our kids.
Mhm.
And I didn't want to go back to that. And I think, one thing that I encourage anybody that I talk to as a student or mentee, I'm like, truly understand the value of your time, right? Look at what, where you are currently in terms of passive income, if there's any, or ultimately where you want to be with your business. So in our case, a goal we really wanted to hit was 50K a month. So you metricize that 50K a month, 600 grand a year, break it down, right? 52 weekends, 104 days, a reasonable job. You're going to get 3 weeks of vacation. Most of us are probably going to want more. But if you use those numbers and you divide the numbers down, effectively your time is worth about $400 an hour, right in and around that, a little over $400 an hour, right? If we do that math. And so let that drive your decisions, right? So one, going back into the workforce. Yeah, it was good money, but it wasn't that good. And it wasn't allowing me to any longer help drive the growth of my business or other things. I don't mind landscaping. However, is it in my best interest when my time is worth what it's worth to do that? No. I hire a landscaper at $180 a month. They come and do it once a month or once a week. All our meals are pre-planned, my wife and I. All these things. Buy back your time. That's another great book, right? Um, and so it was really that critical fork in the road that Claire Drake scenario kind of drove. It's like, okay, do I go left? Do I go back to the work world? Or ultimately, and thankfully, looking back now, I said, okay, let's just double down and find a way to grow out of it. And it takes a certain mindset to do that, of course. But that's when we decided to pivot. I said, okay, we're no longer really finding opportunities in our other markets with the velocity we want. We know there's been a massive relaxation of the zoning standards in Edmonton. So let's get it done. Made a trip out there, made a couple trips out there, interviewed some builders, interviewed some PMs, and brought on a whole new strategy. Right. And by the end of the year, we'll probably have 5 or 6 of them on the go in the market. Again, hopefully maybe a larger one with the equity release from that other project. So, it was what was initially devastating, and there was a lot of stress. There were tears on my part, on Shefali's part, on her family's part, because we had drawn her parents in. They had invested some money when they first came to Canada. It was basically all they had. They sold their house in India and they had put it in there, and it's gone. So yeah, don't I guess looking back, as I said, I mean, we sort of automatically gave her clout because of where we had met her at Legacy and being the I think she was the creative finance instructor the first time we took it. Second time we took it was with Tim. And yeah, do your due diligence on people, do your due diligence on the opportunities, involve other people too. Because realistically, I think at that point, it was earlier in our career. And frankly, we probably weren't smart enough to properly, pour over those documents and those investment proposals. You should have had.
Or drive by the property too.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people did not drive by the property, and they never would have done the deal if they had, or just have someone locally drive by.
Yeah. Some of the properties don't even exist.
Or they've been torn down. There's one
Yeah,
that I forget what city was
torn
torn
down.
down by the city, going against the CCA order. There's no. Sorry, everyone. The city tore down the house. The bank's like, we had a mortgage on this.
Right.
Thanks.
I mean, and I don't want to wish ill on anyone. But I mean, in my heart of hearts, I guess the only thing I'll say is I hope that karma catches up with some of these people, whether it's the borrowers or other people.
All right, and we're over time, so I think it's a great place to leave it there. Where can people track you down, connect with you? Where's the best to connect with you?
Social media, I guess, is probably easiest nowadays. So I'm trying to think, Instagram, couple of pages. Need to know. Actually, I should know my own handles, shouldn't I?
In front of me,
Ryan underscore Carr 5 is my personal, and then Sherry Group is the company. Nothing special there if you actually look at it. So Shafali and Ryan, that's where Sherry comes from. So again, she gets top billing because she's the brains of the operation, truly.
There she is.
And she is, yeah. Yeah. So
All right, Ryan, thanks so much for doing this.
although she's tiny, she's mighty. Yeah, no, thank you, Erwin. I appreciate you having me on, and a great way to kick off the year.
I agree. This is a great episode to kick off the year because you've gone through a lot, and it's not all sunshine and roses, but you're pushing forward. I'm sure many people will benefit from this message.
Appreciate it. And yeah, I think there's maybe other things to talk about in the future, but we'll certainly love to keep in touch. And I think that there's probably an opportunity to chat with yourself and Sherry on the US setup. So we should set that up.
Love to.
All right.
All right, friends, that wraps up another episode of the Truth About Real Estate Investing show for Canadians. Hope you got as much out of this one as I did. Remember that whether you're just starting out or a seasoned investor, there's always something new to learn, and it's always about building that practical knowledge base that gets you closer to financial freedom. If you found value today, please do us a favor and leave us a review or a rating, share this episode with a friend, or better yet, join our community of real estate investors who are taking action and making moves. And hey, if there's a topic you want us to cover or have there's a certain guest you'd like us to have on the show, drop me a line. My DMs are open on social media. Reply to this email that this have arrived on. I'm not hard to find. We're all about getting you the unfiltered truth to help you on your journey. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode. Until then, stay smart, stay curious, and keep building that future. Catch you later.